Welcome to tonight's competition for the Cleveland Photographic Society, our first competition of the 2021-2022 year. Tonight's competition is a people competition. My name is Mike Kopkas, and I'm the current CPS president. And before we get started with the competition, I would like to give you some announcements here. First of all, the upcoming competitions. On July 23rd, we have a nature and pictorial competition. The deadline to enter that is July 14th. We have some upcoming speakers. On July 16th, we have a members-only Zoom presentation with Ruth Carter, and she's going to be talking about the legalities of photography. Some upcoming field trips. We have a field trip to the Stan Hewitt Hall and Gardens on July 17th, and some informal field trips. These are just some items of interest that we feel you might be interested in taking advantage of some photographic events. July 8th through the 11th, at Broadview Heights Home Days. There's a lot of rides. There'll be fireworks after each evening, weather permitting. So it's a good opportunity to get out and practice some night photography. On July 24th, Buchan, Ohio. And again, that's an informal field trip, a rodeo, and that will be repeated several times over the summer. Also want to let you know that enrollment for fall classes has started. Classes begin on September 1st. On Wednesdays, we'll be doing fundamentals of photography. On Saturdays, Photoshop editing. On Mondays, intermediate Photoshop, and on Tuesdays, Lightroom Classic. This fall, these will be live classes. They will also be broadcast as well, but we are getting back to live classes, again, if the pandemic doesn't rear its ugly head again. And we invite you to watch this and all Friday meetings at your convenience on the CPS YouTube channel. We do have a link on the CPS website homepage. Or if you go to youtube.com, you can search for Cleve Photographic. We invite you to subscribe to our channel and choose to be notified whenever a new tape is posted. Again, welcome. This is our first people competition for the year. Tonight we have 142 images, 60 in the people category and 82 in the pictorial category. And before we introduce our judges, I want to call up our competition chair. He's going to introduce himself and talk a little bit about some rules for competitions. So with that, Bill Keaton.
Hello all, welcome to the first competition of the competition year. I just wanted to highlight a few of the rules. There has been some questions. Somebody submitted some watermarked photographs in this competition. No watermarks on your photographs, no names to identify. We let them slide this time because it's the first competition, but if you have your name or a watermark on a photograph from this point on, we will disqualify your photograph. Second thing I want to talk about, some people had questions about the B competition. Competitions, you enter the B competition or you enter our regular competitions. If you're a beginner, I'm going to suggest you spend at least a couple times entering the B competitions, and then depending on how you do in comments, you may want to move on to the regular competitions, but it has to be one or the other. If you enter B competitions and then decide to switch to the regular competitions, you can't go back. I'd also like to mention titles for photographs. Last year, we had a few photos that snuck through that exceeded 30 characters and limits. That causes some problems with our making sheets for scoring everything. Please limit your titles to 30 characters. Our next competition is going to be a nature competition, and the hand of man always seems to rear its ugly head. I always have to disqualify 4 or 5 photographs, so make sure there is no sign of the hand of man in your photographs. That means if there is a obviously cut limb on a tree and you're taking a picture of a bird, that's the hand of man. If you have a wonderful scenic and there is a stump in your scenic, that's the hand of man. Same with a pile of rocks that's obviously been stacked. Anything that shows that man has been there will disqualify your photographs from a nature category. So with that, I think we're ready to get started, and we'll let Mike introduce tonight's judges.
Okay, so here are our judges for this evening. Our first judge is Bruce Bishop. Bruce has been a photojournalist for more than 30 years. He does general assignment news photography, but is best known for his breaking news coverage. He also runs a wedding photography business. Bruce says, photography is my profession, but I am fortunate it is also my hobby. He enjoys storm chasing and the involved photography all across Ohio and ranging as far away as Oklahoma. He has made presentations at CPS and has judged in the past. And he says, I can't say enough how impressed I am with the quality of the work this group does. Our second judge is Keith Blanford. Keith became interested and then immersed in photography 70 years ago. He was a yearbook photographer and then worked in a camera store after high school and experimented in photography, going so far as mixing his own high-speed black and white and color developers. During his working and family-raising years, he did not shoot as much, but did stay involved working in other media. Retiring about 20 years ago, he was again bitten by the photo bug and started shooting, competing, teaching, judging, and exhibiting his work. Some behind-the-scenes shooting on student movie projects led to an interest in his favorite genre, street photography. His work can be viewed at www.keithblanford.com. And our third and final judge is Gary Dumm. Gary was seduced by the siren song of comic books when his mother used them to help teach him to read. Watching her doodle made him realize it was possible to draw, which led to a career as an artist. In 1975, he met Cleveland writer Harvey Pekar and began a 30-year association with him, drawing comic art for his groundbreaking autobiographical comic book, American Splendor. Gary's wife, Laura, added color as needed. Subsequently, the Dumms have collaborated on a well-received series of pop surrealistic paintings about social issues and the environment, with Gary drawing and Laura painting. He worked with author Scott McGregor, drawing an almost 300-page graphic novel called Fire on the Water, released in May of 2020 by Abrams Comic Arts. The Dumms are currently collaborating with teacher-author Bruce Olav Solheim on his new comic, Snark, the story of an alien-human hybrid invader who decides he likes Earth and becomes determined to save it. And the Dumms art can be viewed at www.dumbart.com. So those are our three judges. Now, the judging criteria for the night, for all competitions, each judge scores an image on a scale of 5 to 9. And then the final score for each image is the total of all three judges' scores. Images are judged on 3 criteria: impact, composition, and technique. So with that in mind, let's get started with our people images. Oh, tonight's readers, by the way, I should have mentioned that. The judges have submitted their comments, and we have 3 club members who'll be doing the reading. Eric Wethington will be reading for Gary. Jean Krusinski is reading for Keith, and Bill Keaton is reading for Bruce. Okay, get that right. All right, let's get started with the people images.
This is an interesting picture, Bruce says. I think it might have been helped by 2 small things. The bridge behind him is a bit distracting with it not being on the horizontal. To be fair, I think the photographer was being true to the scene. It most likely does run at an angle. Seeing more of the subject's face would have brought more of his personality to the picture. I imagine this picture would be a strong part of a series of images from this event. I bet it was fun to shoot.
The image is entitled Above It All by Gary Wood, 20 points.
Keith said, my first reaction, of course, is a smile. I am distracted by the bright, large mattress at the bottom. Think about the border of an image. You did darken it some, but maybe not enough. The face and bright mattress area compete. I think you could have improved skin tone just a bit and brightened the eyes a little.
The image is entitled Baby Blues by Tammy Jankovic, 21 points.
Gary says, great lighting and use of abstract background to push the figure forward. I don't like fur, but its use here and the model's grip on it bespeaks something primitive and simultaneously modern. Perhaps some jewelry props would strengthen that further.
The image is entitled Brittany by Betsy Janda, 22 points, honorable mention.
Bruce says, pure joy and a found moment make this a great picture and one that will elicit feelings many years from now. Joy in a picture is something that's a gift to be given. We should try to think about the moment, but also about the long-term joy his parents will feel looking back at this.
The image is entitled Bug Boy Joy by Mike Kopkas, 23 points, honorable mention.
Keith said, it is an interesting shot. Her personality shows clearly. I get what you were trying to do with the low contrast light, but I think the face is too washed out. A little more contrast is needed. The clothes are perfect, but in comparison, her face is washed out. Could the background have a little less contrast? I think I would have darkened the edges some, maybe a little vignette.
The image is entitled Busy by Dave Saborik, 21 points.
Gary says, a great face to go with the costuming. The sepia tone is an obvious choice, but the light effect at the edges work well. Perhaps a more confrontational look at the viewer would strengthen the image.
The image is entitled Civil War Officer by Nancy Kekelik, 20 points.
Bruce says, I wish there was a bit more light on her face, but that's a small point when you look at the big picture. Hopefully the mask will be a blip in our American history, and this photo perfectly captured the traditional moment that has been changed because of the impact masking has had on so much photography. The moment and the composition make this picture work. Too close, and it's just a youngster wearing a mask. Nice work.
The image is entitled COVID Wedding by Eric Wethington, 21 points.
Keith said, her eyes certainly drew me in. I feel like it is too tightly cropped. I wanted to see more at the bottom, and by cropping it this tightly, the bottom is messy and incomplete. Technically, it's good. My brain says it wants to see more. Hair and colors are well done.
The image is entitled Destiny 3 by Rick Carroll, 21 points.
Gary says, nice side lighting that brings up detail well and nicely cropped. The piece of equipment that crosses the guitarist's hand does strengthen the diagonal part of the composition, but is somewhat distracting.
The image is entitled Echo Messiah by Sarah Zietlow, 22 points, honorable mention.
Ha, said Bruce. I was hoping I get to comment on this one. I like faces in pictures, unless everything else in the picture takes away the need for the emotion on the face. Technically, it's so well done, and the body language gets across the exact look you wanted.
The image is entitled Forlorn by Vicky Wirt, 27 points, first place. 27 points is a perfect score. So we do have a little ribbon to give to Vicky the next time we see her.
Keith said, I can't imagine putting my body in that position and then being able to stand up. You captured that well. Where did my eye go first? I saw the fountain, water, sprays, very bright lights. Then I saw her. The shadows in front of her are very interesting and complement the image of her nicely, but all the water, splashing, etc. competes for my attention. Maybe if you had used a gradient on the top to reduce the brightness, that would have helped. You need to manage where the eye goes first and then where it moves around.
The image is called Fountain Dancer by Susan Bestel, 20 points.
Gary says there is craftsmanship in evidence of both photography and smithing, but his shirt and face, as well as focus for this process, are excellent. The hammer's head is a little lost in the mix, but the hammer and the white hot metal parallel the stripes in the shirt.
The image is called Hale Farm Blacksmith by Nancy Kukelik, 20 points.
Bruce says, yet another one I had hoped to comment on. Another beautifully done image with such great control of exposure and post work. I'm not sure if the rays of light are real or post-production, but they add to this image, and it's not a photojournalism category, so it doesn't matter. Having an interesting subject certainly enhances this picture, but if it were done with 2 American kids in an American household and it was shot with this level of expertise, it would have the same score despite the less exotic subjects.
The image is called Helping with Studies by Debbie Leesky, 25 points, third place.
Keith observed, she certainly has a pleasant appearance that you captured well. Could you have added just a little more contrast in the face? At the bottom, I lose the chin, and the earring becomes the edge of the chin. I think I would have removed the earring. My eye goes there because it is high contrast. I just think it is a little too washed out. Maybe just darken the lips a little, more like the eyes. One teacher I had preached Border Patrol to eliminate whatever that is in the lower right corner.
The image is called High Key Model by Mike Kopkas, 19 points.
Gary says, a nice composition and subject. There's a feeling of the angelic, or at least awe, at something's approach. Perhaps a slightly longer depth of focus to include the eyes would help.
The image is called Judy by Leslie Nutt, 22 points, honorable mention.
This is an interesting image, and I appreciate the post-production, Bruce says. I'm curious about the picture and how it came to be. It's unusual to have a picture where you have subjects that could be taken yesterday or 50 years ago.
The image is called Catherine and Rick Inc., Springs Ranch, Colorado, by Gary Marich, 21 points.
I smiled, commented Keith B. Very happy shot. When people look at a shot of a person, the first thing they try to see is the face, particularly the eyes. I've been taught that, and I think it makes sense. His face is in the right spot, upper third left, but no face is there. I would have darkened the little piece of diaper that shows because bright spots capture the eye while it is wandering around an image. The rear of the critter is out of focus or blurred from motion, and that bothers me. Maybe crop right, vignette.
The image is called Kids by Belinda Prince, 21 points.
Gary says, an incredible color combined with good composition. Their eye color matches too. Perhaps an additional prop or two, a knife, sword, helm in the middle ground would break that area up some.
The image is called Lean on Me by Jackie Sieski, 25 points, third place.
Bruce says, I'm not sure that people is the best category for this particular image. It's a very well done creative image. Unless I'm mistaken, this is a wonderful image for pictorial. Again, beautifully done.
The image is called Lonesome by Vicky Wirt, 25 points, third place.
Keith observed, happy kids. Makes me think of my grandkids. It looks like everyone was having fun. I think the smoke dominates and the kids become secondary. I really think cropping bottom and right considerably would help a lot. I did it on my monitor and the smoke became less dominant. The skin tone seems a bit off, maybe a little green.
The image is called Love in the Castle by Serena Cernick, 21 points.
Gary says a good textural portrait which confronts the viewers, but it doesn't overwhelm. The darkness of the eyes is particularly effective. Might be even more effective if it was cropped slightly at the top and more at the bottom.
The image is called Man Wearing Straw Hat by Robert Boyle, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bruce says this is a well-done picture overall, but I'm having a little trouble drawing the connection between the horse and the man in the picture. If I could encourage a photographer to show either connection to the horse via touch and emotion or interaction between the young man and the horse to bring out more personality. It may be a matter of just taking a second look at the pictures and seeing if another picture captured that. The exposure and processing is all right on the money. It's so close to being something really special.
The image is entitled Memphis Teamster by Gary Merritt, 19 points.
Attractive young girl, deep in thought, said Keith. Is the placement of the face a little too high? First thing a viewer of a person wants to do is look at the face, the eyes in particular. I understand we are wired that way. Is her face a little high in the image? Rule of thirds? I don't think you need that much of the forest on the right to show, maybe about half of it. It is almost half the image, so I spent too much time looking around in the woods. On my monitor, her face skin tone seems a little bit greenish compared to her arms.
The image is called Nap Time by Serena Cernick, 22 points, honorable mention.
Gary says the softening foggy effect in this natural setting is calming, while the body positions to seem somewhat confrontational, a nice dichotomy. This one might be improved by a judicious cropping close to the figure at the left and a bit off the top.
The image is entitled Park Friendships by Bob Kowaleski, 19 points.
Kind of a Mona Lisa moment in this picture, Bruce says. She has that amused look for sure. It would make my day if you were going for that. I might suggest a slight turn towards the camera to open the shoulders.
The image is called Smirk by Fran Marino, 20 points.
He said, very interesting shot, in a good way. Normally, I feel uncomfortable if I can't see the face, but it works here. Think about where the eye goes. The big out-of-focus tree on the left is a problem. I would just crop off the left third of the shot. Photography is a subjective art. Painting is additive. We need to remove from the shot everything that is not needed to tell the story and everything that is distracting. The camera catches all of it, and we edit it down.
The image is called Solitary Walk by Dennis Bean, 21 points.
Gary says a great human interest portrait, and the use or inclusion of his hand really adds to the composition. Is he questioning, or is he just not satisfied with the answer he's been given?
The image is called Storylines by Jackie Sieski, 25 points, third place.
Bruce says lots of ways to mess this picture up. High key can be very challenging, but it sure looks good to me. I like the image and the look she has in this pose. Well done.
The image is called Studio Session by Eric Wethington, 21 points.
He said, this reminds me of fun in the lakes in Michigan. Great times. Could this be cropped a little tighter? There is more water and float than is needed. My biggest concern is what appears to be over sharpening. It is messing with edges. Or is it over enlarged? Maybe a vignette would focus on the story.
The image is called Takedown on Lily Pad by Dan Hennessy, 19 points.
Gary says, nice portrait study in textures, and the subject looks straight at the viewer. A symphony of cuteness. I'm stumped with what you could add to improve this. A fly? A bandage? A tattoo?
The image is called The Cowgirl by Bill Keaton, 20 points.
Bruce says this reminds me an awful lot of something you have seen in Life magazine in the 1960s. I do like this crop. It makes an expansive scene. I could also see it with a slightly tighter crop featuring the group in back. That around the girl's back just does it for me. It takes it from a disconnected group of people, and that one tiny detail makes this a top scoring image. The other connections are so subtle. Look at the people's head turned on the girl at the very front, going back to the arm around her friend, then just three girls back, the unrestrained laughter. Those moments are subtle, but added up makes me really like this picture.
The image is entitled The Summer of Our Innocence by Elizabeth Klenick, 20 points.
Keith observed, attractive young lady. If you apply the rule of thirds stuff, I'd expect to find her face on the left and be able to make eye contact. We are wired that way. So placing the face there does not feel right. Her face being turned 90 degrees just makes me uncomfortable. There is a lot of tension caused by her head being that way in a shot that should be feel good. So there is conflicting feeling, tension versus sweet young girl. Colors are all good.
The image is entitled Tween Becoming by Karen Kritzer, 22 points, honorable mention.
Gary says, well-cropped portrait and texture study. The angled face, no background, and off-camera gaze makes one wonder what he's looking through space or through time.
The image is called Ulysses S. Grant by Richard Ader, 22 points, honorable mention.
These pictures are always just nice to look at, Bruce says. It's well done technically, and you have an interesting subject to look at. There isn't much more to say about it because it ticks off each item on the list of things that makes a good people picture.
The image is entitled Union Officer Number 1 by Robert Boyle, 23 points, honorable mention.
He said, this is a cool shot. I like it. I like the composition and technical aspects. I'd like to know the story. I wish it was cropped a little less on the right. I'd like to see more of his shirt. If I was doing post on it, I would have added a little more detail in the smoke shadows. Just bring out the blacks a bit.
The image is called Vapor Trail by Roger Summer, 26 points, second place.
Gary says, well composed with a child wrestling with both the known and the unknown. Would like to see her right hand now fairly hidden, doing something more.
The image is called Viv by Cynthia Smith, 19 points.
Bruce says, a nice picture or a nice people picture with additional detail in the picture to guide you along the way. Masks make people pictures so hard to do, but the photographer managed to capture the personality through the subject's eyes.
The image is called We're Back by Richard Foley, 20 points.
Keith said, I feel like I'm party to their conversation. I'm a little bothered by cropping off their feet. If the shot did not include that, it is hard to know the best way to crop. Photography is a subtractive art. The camera captures everything. Our job is to subtract what is distracting or does not add to the story. I would get rid of all the stuff on the left, crop off the left 1/3 of the tree and all the rest of the left stuff.
The image is called Who's the Boss by Dennis Bean, 21 points.
Gary says, subject's body position in this space and hand at his inquisitive face are good and draw the viewer in. The bottom area with the green fence slat cowboy belt buckle, and some of the expanse of his blue shirt might be cropped out, and nothing is really lost.
The image is called Young Cowboy by Mike Lonsdale, 19 points.
Bruce says faces are key, and this is a great one. There is great action, and the equipment makes this youngster look like she really knows what she is doing. I think the shooter absolutely showed just who that person is. It is a winning image.
The image is called Young Wakeboarder by Ronald Wilson, 24 points, honorable mention.
Keith said, "Sweet young girl, you caught a good moment. Photography is a subtractive art. The camera catches everything, and your job is to remove everything that does not contribute to the story. Especially, we need to remove eye-catching things like a high-contrast item. When I first looked at the image, I saw her standing on the yellow hose. The yellow hose dominates. Is that the story, or is it the chocolate ice cream cone? Maybe her face could be just a little brighter."
The image is called Yum by Dennis Wirt, 20 points.
Gary says, superb human and animal interest portrait that's well composed with multiplicity of nice textures. Tough to improve on this one, in my humble opinion.
The image is called A Camel and Its Owner by Dave Saborik, 27 points, perfect score, first place. Again, we will be getting a ribbon to Dave Saborik. Congratulations, Dave.
A simple portrait where the photographer used composition to keep the image interesting, but let the subject just carry the weight, Bruce says. I'll guess that the photographer knows this person. There is a comfort in the subject that is so hard to get when taking a picture of another person. If the photographer doesn't know the person, then it's even better.
The image is called Blue Eyes Somewhere by Leslie Nutt, 21 points.
Keith said, "I love this shot. I photographed some rodeo and some practicing. I like the story, the guy watching, the crowd, the action. Maybe it could use a little more saturation because it is such a strong image and I can see stronger color adding to it. But that is just me trying to find some constructive comment to make it even better. Well done."
The image is called Bullfighter 101 by Ronald Wilson, 24 points, honorable mention.
Gary says, nice human animal interest with the well-lit giraffe staring imperiously at the joyful kids. Would like to see the two kids better lit, but it's a moment in time and you get what you can get.
The image is called Can We Keep Him by Roger Summer, 21 points.
Bruce says, what would you want to see in a people picture? Something that portrays a person in a way that's true to their personality or interests. Something that might show off what makes them special. This subject looks very cool, very glamorous, and certainly had to be happy with how this picture turned out. It has all kinds of style.
The image is called Curly Top by Fran Marino, 21 points.
"Wherever this was, it looks like fun," Keith observed. "There is a lot of tension in this shot. When we look at the photo, the eye wants to land on a spot and then explore. I could not find that starting point. The guy and the background merge. I think maybe severe cropping would help focus on the guy. Did you try it with lower saturation? His skin tones being greenish make him blend more with the bushes."
The image is called Finding a Way by Rich Foley, 20 points.
Gary says, nice color, composition, and juxtaposition of the subjects. Particularly like the warmth of the candlelight and the subject's expressions. Recommend a slight crop of the foreground.
The image is called Got the Giggles by Debbie Leesky, 23 points, honorable mention.
Bruce says a simple approach and simple post-production of a moment that's anything but simple. As shown in a few other entries, this picture captures the essence of a special moment without going over the top with postwork. It is a classic moment.
The image is called Instant Love by Tammy Jankovic. 22 points, honorable mention.
Keith commented, very sweet young girl. I suspect she expresses what she thinks. The crop seems just a little tight at the bottom. I've heard some experts say when we look at a face, the first thing we look at, or for, is eyes. Hers are great. Then we look at the mouth, which is when I see the yellowish stuff below her lip that looks like food. I would have removed that. I love the ice crystal on her hat. It's a very good shot.
The image is called Kate by Cynthia Smith. 25 points, third place.
Gary says, nice focus on a subject's face, particularly his eyes. An affable child. The shot might benefit from something of his seen at the lower right to tell us more about him.
The image is called Marcello by Mike Lonsdale. 20 points.
Bruce says a good high key in an earlier image, and now the opposite end with some very well executed low key work. I like the lighting, the traditional pose, and you end up with a classic looking portrait. It certainly doesn't look like a first time effort doing low key work either. Very nice.
The image is called My Father Albert by Melanie Plummer. 23 points, honorable mention.
Keith said, I do a lot of street photography and love a shot like this that shows life. I wonder if the crop is a little tight, but since I don't see the whole image, I could be wrong. One teacher I had stressed Border Patrol. The blue thing in the lower right is a little distracting. Another distraction you could eliminate is the white spot below his right eye. These are picky comments. It is a great shot.
The image is called Old Man Contemplating by Richard Ader. 22 points, honorable mention.
Gary says, effective light emphasizing subject's face and hair with the addition of the red strengthening light out of dark even further. Perhaps a totally black background would push it even more.
The image is called Rebecca in Red by Betsy Janda. 21 points.
Bruce says the never ending question of the line between photography and graphic art. As someone who likes to go between the two things, I appreciate the effort and execution. Without a doubt, the photographer managed to capture an image that makes this person look like a predator. Interesting use of cropping and those highlights that keep things attached.
The image is called Shuttered 2, 2020 Self-Portrait Series by Elizabeth Klenick. 21 points.
He said, good job of capturing her personality. She looks like a sweet girl. The biggest concern I have about this image is loss of detail in the right side of her face and her shirt. This is a large white detail-free stripe. I understand this area should be lighter, but maybe not this much. For example, I can't see her chin.
The image is called Sweet Innocence by Karen Kritzer. 20 points.
Gary says, great composition, textures, and human interest without even seeing a face. This is a photographic haiku. It says so much with very little, nothing to add or subtract.
The image is called The Passage of Time by Bill Keaton. 26 points, second place.
Bruce says this one features a heavier hand in post-production to bring the viewer right to the best part of this youngster. Those big eyes and the strong face of an all-American kid. The black and white processing does even more to keep us focused on exactly what they wanted us to look at.
The image is called Tired Eyes by Rick Carroll. 23 points, honorable mention.
He said there is a lot of emotion in the shot. He seems present and she seems somewhere else. That is uncomfortable for me, but maybe that is the story. If she was turned a little bit toward the camera like he is, it would be better. If her face was lit more like his is, it would be better. They seem to present different persona, and I'd like it to be more the same.
The image is called Warm Embrace by Susan Bestel, 21 points.
Gary says, nice multiple exposure effect. This is the pace of human life in the 21st century. Like the composition as it allows for the figure to move into the future, to take this into better focus would ruin the rushing effect.
The image is called Woman on the Run by Jane Sidney, 21 points. All right, and with that finishes the people portion of the competition. And now we're going to get into the pictorial portion. And for the first set of images, there will be no comments. So I will read the title and the maker and the score. And then for those that were they were requested comments, we will pick that up when we get to those images. All right, the first image. Okay, the first image is called A Bold Stump by Rick Mills, 24 points, second place. The next image is called Along the Mississippi by Dan Hennessy, 19 points. The image is called Beep Beep by Dennis Wirt, 20 points. Being Number One by Bob Koleski, 22 points, honorable mention. Blue Heron by Joseph Miko, 25 points, first place. Blue Crowned Mott Mott by Marge Brady, 23 points, third place. Cell Block by John Downey, 24 points, second place. Cock of the Walk by Jim Rowe, 22 points, honorable mention. Coming In for a Landing by Donna Schneider, 24 points, second place. Confederate Woman Soldier by Richard Ader, 21 points. Dancing in the Moonlight by Fran Marino, 21 points. Dewey Dandelion by Ron Werman, 18 points. First Light Ivy by Rick Carroll, 21 points. Flight 93 National Memorial by Sarah Zietlow, 22 points, honorable mention. Gone with the Wind by Joseph Miko, 23 points, third place. Grand Reflections by Mike Lonsdale, 21 points. Gus the Arabian Camel by Susan Bestel, 22 points, honorable mention. Icy Branches by Jacqueline Murray, 23 points, third place. Just Breathe by Kim Waszalewski, 19 points. Cara Cara in Flight by Richard Snyder, 24 points, second place. Knock Next Time by Barb Cerrito, 22 points, honorable mention. Lake Erie Storm by Jacqueline Murray, 22 points, honorable mention. Laughing Roseate by Gary Wood, 22 points, honorable mention. Lavender Stop by Jane Sidney, 21 points. Male Grosbeak by Richard Schneider, 24 points, second place. Marquette Lighthouse by Bonnie Luxo, 22 points, honorable mention. Melting Glacial by Maria Diaconou, 21 points. Mittens at Sunrise by Ron Wilson, 22 points, honorable mention. Myanmar Sunset by Debbie Leesky, 21 points. Nature's Paintbrush by Dave Saborik, 25 points, first place. Nutskull and Shrooms by Belinda Prinz, 21 points. Old Loading Docks by Bonnie Luxo, 21 points. Playhouse Square by Rich Foley, 23 points, third place. Realistic Maryland, Key West by Jim Rowe, 21 points. Soaring Free by Bill Keaton, 23 points, third place. Splish Splash, Taking a Bath by Donna Schneider, 23 points, third place. Stanford Hallway by Maria Diaconou, 20 points. Star Dogwood by Jane Sidney, 21 points. Sunflower Girl by Karen Kritzer, 20 points. Sunset in Northern Arizona Desert by Ronald Posner, 21 points. Swan Lake by Cynthia Smith, 21 points. Taking a Break by Tammy Jankovic, 21 points. The Cinderella Complex by Elizabeth Klanick, 22 points, honorable mention. Three Sisters by Marge Brady, 21 points. Through the Magical Forest by Kim Wasilewski, 19 points. Tree Swallow, Sandy Ridge by Roger Summer, 21 points. Tugboat by Rick Mills, 21 points. Up, Up, and Away by Darla Zajac, 21 points. Watch Your Step by Ronald Posner, 22 points, honorable mention. Waterfall by John Downey, 20 points. White Pink Lily by Elda Baroni, 20 points. Woodland Geranium by Ron Werman, 21 points. Yellow Tulip by Leslie Nutt, 23 points, third place. All right, the remaining pictorial images, we will hear the judges' comments.
Bruce says, an interesting picture of a classic car. Good job keeping out the reflections, or at the very least, not being recognizable in them. I do think this picture would have been better if it were outside somewhere, but it's not meant to second guess, or I'm not meant to second guess. It would be nice if we had the option to make our backgrounds cooperate. The photographer did the next best thing. They made the background not matter. It's not a distraction. Great job doing that.
The image is called 1911 Brush Auto with Eyeballs by Dan Hennessy, 20 points.
Keith said, I do a lot of street photography. I love this shot. I want to know the story, right? I like the way part of the story is somewhat hidden on the left. My only comment would be making the dark blue jacket on the left just a little bit lighter to be not so hidden. Nice work.
The image is called Alms for the Poor During Bridal Walk by Ronald Posner, 23 points, third place.
Gary says, nice capture of inaction in action and textures. Good angle and composition for the shot, too. Does this need a duck, gator, or child added? Nope.
The image is called Angry Water by Jacqueline Murray, 21 points.
It sure looks like a Lego building, Bruce says. This is an interesting building and no doubt was fun to shoot. I'm assuming that there were a lot of other things that would have distracted from the building, and we won't know that because the photographer used composition to keep our eyes on the subject. This building is very similar to the approach taken with several of the portraits. Go in tight and rely on the subject to be interesting. This is a fun picture for sure.
The image is called Building on Waterloo by Ron Werman, 20 points.
He said, I want to be constructive, but this does not tell a story to me. Obviously, it is a nice ship photo. There needs to be something beyond just a picture of a ship to be interesting or intriguing or
The image is called Coming into Port by Serena Cernick, 18 points.
Gary says, great composition and animal interaction, and a sharp red color to draw attention. Perhaps a slight crop would focus the viewer's attention even more.
The image is called Dinner Time by Jackie Sieski, 25 points, first place.
Bruce says, I'm guessing the photographer knows the things I'll say. It appears they have some experience shooting things like this because they have an image that could easily be overwhelmed by lighting, and yet it's very close to looking like a watercolor painting. I really like the look and the job done in post.
The image is called Double Lily Trio by Vicky Wirt, 23 points, third place.
interesting scene, said Keith. I wonder if it would be more dramatic with less or no sky. That would push my view down into the lake. It might benefit from a little more saturation. I'm thinking the story is the lake. No sky and crop more off the bottom to focus on the lake and its interesting shape.
The image is called Flaming Gorge, Utah by Gary Marich, 22 points, honorable mention.
Gary says, dynamic composition with fine architectural shot. We see the human hand's creation without any sign of humans.
The image is called Good Time 3 by Bob Kowaleski, 19 points.
Bruce says this is pictorial, well done from the perspective to the exposure to the looks and actions of the birds. It's a matter of having everything right and then hoping your subject cooperates with you on any given day. Pictures like this demonstrate that it's not luck when you get a picture. It's planning, experience, desire, patience. All those things have to come together, and then you get things like this moment.
The image is called Guarding the Nest by Dennis Bean, 24 points, second place.
Keith said, this is an interesting place. The centuries of use give it a lot of character. Please consider cropping it much tighter. The bottom third distracts from the more interesting top 2/3. Right side could be less. Left side, strong light is interesting, but it does take the eye away from the center and photo the altar. It was the first thing my eye went to. Consider getting rid of it or dimming it down and focus on making the altar the center of the attraction.
The image is called Hopeless by Dennis Wirt, 20 points.
Gary says, beautifully lit bird's eye view of a hometown architecture. No sign of people. Is it the twilight of humanity?
The image is called Huntington in the Golden Hour by Mike Kopkas, 20 points.
Bruce says, well lit, well composed. It's a very nice picture of this flower. Personally, I think the depth of field might be a bit shallow, but that's also a matter of preference for each photographer. It's a little hard to judge this particular image because it does make a difference to me if the photographer chose a shallow depth rather than had to use shallow depth based on other variables. The stigma and stamen are just wonderfully lit and look really great.
The image is called Hibiscus on Fire by Elda Baroni, 22 points, honorable mention.
Keith said, funny, this brought a smile to me. Have you considered darkening the borders just a little bit to vignette to surround the face?
The image is called Alpaca Smile by Belinda Prince, 22 points, honorable mention.
Gary says, beautiful textural study of nature being forced by humans. Repeated study of this one is rewarding. Will nature survive the hand of man?
The image is called Jones Mill Run Dam by Sarah Zietlow, 21 points.
Bruce says, funny how some pictures just look simple. Kind of like a wide receiver catching a ball over his shoulder and running 60 yards. Looking simple and being simple are very different things. Great lens choice, exposure, composition, and capture of what sure looks like a fierce, fast flying hunter. Really well done.
The image is called Karakara Swooping In by Richard Schneider, 24 points, second place.
Keith said it brought back a lot of memories of our kids and grandkids. Good shot. Photography is a subtractive art. The camera captures everything, and we subtract until we get the real story. The two kids on the left are the main story. Have you considered cropping to just that? Does the third kid add? It is very hard to include him without including the fourth. So in this version, you sort of dilute the main story. I know it is hard to eliminate. Please consider it.
The image is called Lacrosse Number 1 by Robert Boyle, 22 points, honorable mention.
Gary says, nice composition. The sky is a great counterpoint to the frozen land. Perhaps a medium crop to the foreground would help this one.
The image is called Lighthouse on Ice by Rick Mills, 22 points, honorable mention.
Great lighting, exposure, and composition on this picture, Bruce says. Like so many images in this group, it's well done and competitive with all the other submissions. The sky looks great, and the photographer balanced the highlights and the shadow areas very nicely.
The image is called Lone Tree by Nancy Kukelik, 22 points, honorable mention.
I really like this shot, said Keith. Light areas attract the eye, so my eye is being drawn to the right edge. But the best light effect is in the center. I don't want you to draw my attention to the extreme right. Cropping makes the image unbalanced. Consider darkening the right with a gradient. Focus my view down the long hall. Really interesting.
The image is called Mansfield by Eric Wethington, 21 points.
Gary says, nice architectural study with color dynamics. I like the looming mountain threatening to crush this awesome human creation under its unbearable weight. Has this been abandoned by everyone but the photographer?
The image is called Mountain Resort by Maria Diaconou, 18 points.
Bruce says super crisp and a wonderful saturated colors. There isn't much to say about this picture because it's just very well done and is a great example of this kind of work.
The image is called Rhododendron by Joseph Miko, 23 points, third place.
Keith said, I wish I had been there to see that sky. Awesome. Some of the details in the bottom third are distracting. Consider darkening the white stuff. Have you tried cropping off more of the bottom? I held up a mask and it seemed to draw my attention to the sky more. Have you tried to put a little more contrast or texture in the sky? Just a little. Nice shot.
The image is called Sedona Milky Way by Donna Schneider, 21 points.
Gary says, this composition is like an abstract painting divided in 3 sections. It pushes the viewer from right to left. The white water is active in an almost completely pastoral scene. There is no sign of human presence other than this photograph exists.
The image is called Small Waterfall by John Downey, 19 points.
Bruce says the picture was nice when it was shot, and personally, I think the post-production work did make it stronger. You frequently see a look to certain techniques and it's forced or just used trying to make a boring image look better. I've been there and done that, so I'll plead guilty. Having good bones to begin with, the post work accentuated things rather than tried to make them to be there.
The image is called Straker Lake by Marge Brady, 21 points.
I love being on the water, Keith said. We had a boat. The eye is drawn to white, bright objects, especially in this case being in the upper right third, sort of. I don't think the sun accomplishes anything. Photography is a subtractive art. The camera records everything. We subtract and subtract until we get to the minimum things we need to tell the story. The reflection shows enough of the sun. Maybe?
The image is called Sunset Cruise by Jim Rowe, 20 points.
Gary says, nice division of the composition with the stark darks lit by the sun, but the bird seems lost. Unless that, of course, is what was the photographer's intent.
The image is called Sunshine Skyway by Gary Wood, 21 points.
Bruce says, I like this picture and have had one suggestion. It would be to shoot raw in tricky lighting so it's easier to bring things into alignment when shooting something with tricky color temperatures. At least on my monitor, this appears a bit too warm. I believe the colors up there are cooler than this, and at night, I think you'd want the lighting to reflect that. Again, composition and subject are right there. It's just that one little thing for me.
The image is called The Heart of America by Bonnie Luxo, 20 points.
Keith said, I like to experiment. I get tired of literal presentations of scenes, so I appreciate the effort. Could you make the textures of the area more alike? The sky has one sort of texture, but the mountains have a different sort of texture or feel, in addition to color. Could the trees on the center mountain be treated more like the trees above the waterfall?
The image is called Yosemite by Joe DiStefano, 23 points, third place. All right, and that concludes our competition for this evening. We want to thank all of our judges, and we also want to thank everyone who participated. We do invite you to send your feedback to us at info@clevelandphoto.org. And again, that concludes tonight's event. If you have or would like more information about how to compete, or if you'd like to join the Cleveland Photographic Society, please feel free to visit our website, clevelandphoto.org. So again, thank you, everyone. Good night, and we'll see you soon.